Hey guys, I wanted to take just a little bit to talk about something that we may not actually be considering very often in our own lives as far as veterinary medicine and anxiety goes. So I think that we would all agree that there are a lot of different parts of this profession that can be pretty darn stressful. And if you've been following Joyful DVM for any period of time, you know that I've identified there's just like 5 main categories of anxiety that we experience. So every little thing that we find stressful can really fall into one of 4 categories. And just to summarize, those 4 categories are past decisions, personal inexperience, human interactions, and unexpected outcomes. Everything that we're stressed out about can fall into one of those categories when it comes to our lives in VetMed. But what many of us don't realize is that the anxiety and the stress that we have inside of our veterinary professions is actually influencing every single other part of our lives. We think the problem is just the job, it's just the profession that we have chosen, but it's showing up across all different areas, and many of us don't even realize that that is happening. I know when I was at the heart of it, I definitely did not see it at all. Instead, what I believed was that it was my job, it was the place that I worked, it was the people that I worked with, it was the outcomes of my patients, it was the nasty things that the client said. I believed all of those things were the heart of my anxiety, and if I could fix what happened day in and day out at work, that every other part of my life would get better. What I didn't realize was that the anxiety and the stress that I was experiencing inside of my day in, day out job in the veterinary world was actually just one piece of it, and that anxiety was actually already influencing everything else. And actually, it was probably already in a lot of those other places. It just became a lot more prominent the longer that I was in veterinary medicine, because the stressors were constant, right? Because those things happen every day. You know, cases, we don't know how they're going to turn out. People say some nasty things. We question things that we've decided, you know, all of those things, they happen day in and day out in VetMed. And so we don't really understand how this shows up every single day in our lives. So I wanted to take a second and just point that out to you and share that anxiety that you're feeling and the stress of the profession, yes, absolutely, all the things that we talked about, your coworkers, where you work, the way that clients interact, the long hours, the pay, all of those things are stressors, but it's actually influencing all the rest of your life. It's influencing the decisions that you make about how you spend your time outside of work. It's influencing the decisions that you make about how you spend your money day in and day out. It's influencing the decisions that you make about literally how you take care of yourselves. For many of us, it's a big influence on what we eat and drink day in and day out. For me, it was a huge influence on how often I stopped at Starbucks, if I'm being honest, that's for sure. And if you're kind of trying to manage all the emotion, anxiety with food or beverage, your waistline's going to get a little bit bigger over time. Makes perfect sense why it happens. Now, how do we stop it? Another place that it shows up outside of VetMed is in every relationship that we have. And I'm not talking about just intimate personal relationships like with a significant other, but I'm also talking about the relationships that you have with your family, the relationships that you have with friends, the relationships that you have with just people that you meet. That anxiety is with you everywhere. Those stressors of the job are following you everywhere. And so with Vet Life Academy, what I've created is a place for us to understand what's actually going on within us that is creating such a volatile response. Why is it that we're so stressed out? Why is it that we're so anxious? And what can we do about it? I mean, honestly, it's one thing to know why you're stressed out and anxious. It's another to understand the processes and then to recognize how you actually can change it and you can do something about it, and you don't have to have any of the other outside stuff change. Your job doesn't have to change. Your pay doesn't have to change. What people say to you doesn't have to change. Your client interactions don't have to change. The patients don't have to get better every single time for you to feel less anxious and to actually be more joyful and happy and relaxed day in and day out. And as you learn how to apply the skills that we teach in Vet Life Academy to your veterinary life, it actually cleans up all of it. So the way that you spend your time, the way that you spend your money, the way that you interact with your significant other or with your family or friends or people that you meet, all of those things change. The way that you take care of yourself changes. And so in Vet Life Academy, the whole point is not only to show you what's really causing that anxiety and like what's going on internally, but then also how to recognize those same patterns in all these other areas of your life that you're so interested in growing. I don't think there's any of us out there that really want to live this life where we go to work, we stop at a fast food restaurant, we come home and we collapse on the couch, scroll Facebook, mindlessly watch Netflix, finally just fall asleep and get up and do it all over again. How many of you out there are exactly like I was, where you just chalk up a work day as a wasted day? It's a day that you won't have any time or energy or interest in doing anything else. There's 24 hours in a day. Even if you're at work 10 or 12 hours, you still have half of the day. You're going to sleep some of that. So let's say you're working a 12-hour day and you sleep 8. You still got 4 hours. What's happening in that 4 hours? How are you spending your time? Are you just giving that time away because of the stress and the anxiety of the day, that you just need that time to get over the day? If so, is that how you want to live? I don't think so. But I know for me, I didn't know there was a different way. I didn't know there was a different way at all. And I certainly didn't recognize at that point how much what happened during the day was influencing the decisions that I made in every other area of my life. And at the heart of all of it, as I started to learn what I teach in Vet Life Academy, I recognize that it's the anxiety. It's the stress. It's the fear. That's what drives so much of all of this. And so that's what I teach inside Vet Life Academy, is how to recognize what it is, but then how to change it and how to take the control back. Because otherwise what you do is you just let the other things, the events of the day, other people, the way cases turn out, you let all those external things decide your life for you. You let the external things decide your worth and your value. And what many of us miss along the way is that we are completely worthy and valuable the way we are right now, regardless. Doesn't matter if we're super stressed out. Doesn't matter what angry client says or what snarky coworker said. None of that stuff matters. It doesn't matter what our debt load is or how large our waistlines have gotten. None of that matters at all. You're 100% worthy exactly as you are. You're 100% capable exactly as you are. You're not an imposter. You're a human being. You're like just living and experiencing the normal human experience. And inside of that, sometimes there's negative. Life is 50-50 positive, negative. You guys know this. You understand the concept of homeostasis, right? How do you stay in balance? It has to balance itself out. 50-50 positive, negative. If something is overly negative, then you got to have some positive. Something's overly positive, you got to have some negative. That's just the way it is. So once you recognize that the negative is just part of the deal, then that gets a little bit easier to deal with as well. But right now, most of us just think negative means something's gone terribly wrong. And so we spend all this time trying to get away from the negative because we think that the goal is positive and happy all of the time. And if that's not what we have, if that's not the experience that we have with our clients, if that's not the interactions that we have with our coworkers, if that's not the outcome of our cases, that something has gone terribly wrong, and therefore we have gone terribly wrong, that we have done something wrong. We take on the weight of the world, literally, but we take on the weight of the world in a way that the world actually doesn't exist, because it's 50-50 positive, negative. It's not 100% positive unless you screw up. It's not how it works.